Hey, Will King here from High Cotton Homes in Florence, Alabama. And today on the Build Show, I'm going to be going over a commercial water filter system that we just finished up installing here at a property. So let's go ahead and jump into the details. Now, this is at the historic Mapleton house, and we've shot several videos of this property before. And we're actually building out a bakery kitchen, if you will. It's going to be kind of a mixed use bakery, eatery, restaurant type kitchen setup. But the water is always an important part when you're talking about things like ice and drinking water for customers and even the coffee, which I'm probably the biggest fan of. So I wanted to kind of walk you through what we decided to do at this property in particular. Now, backstory, the neighborhood that we're in is a very old neighborhood. And of course, this house is 200 years old. But plumbing obviously isn't 200 years old. But the pipes that feed this neighborhood are the old iron pipes. So the other properties we have around here, if you just put a sediment filter on the water coming in, even though we're PVC or PEX from the meter to the house, you're going to collect a lot of red sediment in the filter. And to be honest, I don't know if that's rust, if it's just iron deposits that are in our water naturally. I'm not sure where it's coming from, but I know I don't want to drink it. So let's talk about how we set this up. Now, there is only a 3/4 inch line coming into this property. Kind of dealing with what we already have here is what we're having to accomplish. But ideally, if we were starting over from scratch, this would be upsized to probably a 1 inch line just for more flow. But to start with is our sediment filter. And I've done videos on sediment filters before, but this is an interesting one because it allows for a 25 GPM flow, which is a pretty high flow rate for a sediment, for any filter really. But it has a set and forget feature, which is neat. So there's actually a flush valve in the bottom of this sediment filter, and it has a schedule that's programmed in, and so it's going to flush the sediment off the outside of this screen. I think it's every 7 or 10 days. I can't remember how we have it programmed, but that's more like a kind of a set and forget type filter, so you don't have to constantly check it and flush it manually, which I really like. It has a nice drain line coming off the bottom that ties back in to our plumbing. So that's always first, and we do this, all of our houses, we always start with a sediment filter because that's going to save the life of your other filters downstream. I think that's a 50 micron filter. So things like hair and rock and sand particles, even some of the rust deposits will accumulate here as well. So that's the first stage of this filter, the filter setup. The second one's going to be this taller filter here behind me. This is actually a new filter that iSpring makes, and it's also a set and forget type filter, but it's a carbon filter. So there's a cartridge inside of this media tank, if you will. And that's going to be where we really start getting things like VOCs and pollutants, chlorine, arsenic, that kind of thing out of our water. But to maintain the life of this filter, it actually flushes itself as well. It also has a drain line coming off the top with an automatic flush valve. So again, starting with the sediment, and then we're going to go here to our chlorine filter or our carbon filter, where we start removing a lot more things out of the water besides just particles that the sediment filter's catching. And that's going to feed the entire property. So we had the main line, we actually intercepted it, made a loop, we came down here to this little mechanical area. And once it leaves here, it goes back and ties in and goes to the rest of the property. Now, that's going to be everywhere in the house. Bathrooms, the kitchen, even the hose bibs outside are going to have filtered water. But when we talk about clean water for drinking and even the ice and the coffee machines, we actually are using reverse osmosis water. Now, if you've watched many of my videos before, you know that I've used a lot of RO systems on a lot of our houses, and our clients really do love them. And personally, I'm a big fan. I have it at my own personal house. I have it at my office, and I just about can't drink tap water anywhere else I go unless it comes through a reverse osmosis system. But this is an interesting system because it's a CRO 1000 from iSpring, but it's 1,000 gallons per day capacity, which is much greater than your standard residential system. But you can see, it's got three spin-on 20-inch filters. It's a sediment filter again, which, to be honest, I don't think that we'll ever have to change this one because of what we're filtering before it gets here with our inline sediment and carbon filter before the water even gets to the RO. But regardless, it came with it, so of course we're going to use it. And then it has two more 20-inch carbon filters that are going to continue to filter that water. But the magic in this one is once it leaves these three stages, it comes to the reverse osmosis membrane that sits on top. And if you know much about reverse osmosis membranes, it's basically a very tightly woven fabric that's spun in a circle. And when water through pressure is forced through it, only the water molecules can pass through that. So that's where you eliminate 99.9% of all contaminants. Even live viruses get trapped by reverse osmosis. So after it leaves here, then it's going to leave via a 3/8 OD tube or pipe where we converted it back to PEX to go all the way to the kitchen. And that's where it's going to split off and go to both the ice maker and a pitcher filler. Now, I will give you a little advice on water filter systems. If you're going to install one, make sure that you put a bypass loop on. I can tell you from changing filters and having to service water filters, if you don't have that bypass loop, it's going to be such a hard job because you're going to have water everywhere, because essentially you have to drain the entire house just to change one filter. Also take, for example, let's say that this filter starts leaking and we have a mess in the floor, but the business is still in operation and we can't shut the water off. You can easily just kill the valve that goes to the filters and open the valve on the bypass loop, and everybody can still function until you make the repair to the filter itself. But anyway, I wanted to share with you today what system we're using on this small kitchen that we're putting in for this business. If you're not already following me on Instagram, please go do so. It's @WillKingBuilds. And just remember, iron sharpens iron, so keep grinding, keep watching these videos, and we'll see you right here on The Build Show.